This is The Metaphysics of War by Julius Evola. Chapter 3. The Meaning of the Crusades. Let us resume our examination of those traditions concerning heroism in which war is regarded as a path of spiritual realization in the strictest sense of the term, and thus acquires a transcendent justification and purpose. We have already discussed the conceptions of the ancient Roman world in this respect. We then described the Nordic traditions regarding the immortalizing character of the truly heroic death on the battlefield. It was necessary to examine these traditions before considering the medieval world, since, as is generally recognized, the Middle Ages as a culture arose from the synthesis of three elements. Firstly, Roman. Secondly, Nordic, and thirdly, Christian. Thus, we are now in a position to examine the idea of the sacredness of war, as the Western medieval age knew and cultivated it. As should be evident, we here refer to the Crusades as understood in their deepest sense, not the sense claimed by historical materialists, according to which they are mere effects of economical and ethnic determinisms, nor the sense claimed by developed minds, according to which they are mere phenomena of superstition and religious exaltation, nor, finally, will we ever even regard them as simply Christian phenomena. In respect to this last point, it is necessary not to lose sight of the correct relationship between means and ends. It is often said that in the Crusades, the Christian faith made use of the heroic spirit of Western chivalry. However, the opposite is the truth. That is to say, the Christian faith and the relative and contingent imperatives of the religious struggle against the infidel and the liberation of the temple and holy land were merely the means which allowed the heroic spirit to manifest itself, to affirm itself, and to realize a sort of ascesis distinct from that of the competitive, but no less rich in spiritual fruits. Most of the knights who gave their energies and their blood for the holy war had only the vaguest ideas and the sketchiest theological knowledge regarding the doctrine for which they fought. However, the cultural context of the Crusades contained a wealth of elements able to confer upon them a higher spiritually symbolic meaning. Transcendent myths resurfaced from the subconscious in the soul of Western chivalry. The conquest of the Holy Land, located beyond the sea, was much more closely associated than many people have imagined with the ancient saga, according to which in the distant east, where the sun rises, lies the sacred city where death does not exist, and the fortunate heroes who are able to reach it enjoy celestial serenity and perpetual life. Moreover, the struggle against Islam had, by its very nature, and from its conception, the significance of an ascetic test. This was not merely a struggle for the kingdom of the earth. A struggle for the kingdoms of the earth. Initially, I thought they were going to say the kingdom of heaven on earth. My mistake. Anyway, wrote the famous historian of the Crusader Kugler, but a struggle for the kingdom of heaven. The Crusades were not a thing of men, but rather of God. Therefore, they should not be thought of in the same way as other human events. Now, regarding the citation for that, the famous historian of the Crusades, Kugler. Let's have a look here. Okay, Bernhard Kugler, Geschichte der Kreuzzüge, Berlin, G. Groth, 1880. No English translation exists at the time of this publication. Okay, and additionally, because I've missed it, I might add that this entire article was originally published on the 9th of July, 1935, as Significato della Crociata in Diorama Mensile il Regime Fascista. Okay. Now then, continuing here. Here we are. Sacred war, according to an old chronicler, should be compared to a bath like that in the fire of purgatory, but before death. Those who died in the Crusades were compared symbolically by popes and priests to gold tested 3 times and refined 7 times in the fire, a purifying ordeal so powerful that it opened the way to the Supreme Lord. Never forget this oracle, wrote Saint Bernard. Whether we live or whether we die, we belong to the Lord. Okay, and the citation for that, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, who lived from 1090 to 1153 AD, was a French abbot who was extremely influential in raising the Second Crusade. He also helped to formulate the rule of the Knights Templar. I do believe the Knights Templar was a sacred order of Teutonic knights that had some affiliation to the Crusades, and I believe they took over the island of Malta. I don't know the details offhand, but that's as much as I can remember from what I've read. Anyway, where was I? Yes. Never forget this oracle, wrote Saint Bernard. Whether we live or whether we die, we belong to the Lord. It is a glory for you never to leave the battle, unless covered with laurels. But it is an even greater glory to earn on the battlefield an immortal crown. O fortunate condition in which death can be approached without fear, waited for with impatience, and received with a serene heart. It was promised that the Crusader would attain an absolute glory absolue, in the provincial tongue, and that he would find rest in paradise. Conquer lit en paradis. That is to say, he would achieve the super-life, the supernatural state of existence, something beyond religious representation. In this respect, Jerusalem, the coveted goal of the conquest, appeared in a double aspect, as an earthly city and as a symbolic, celestial, and intangible city. And the crusade gained an inner value, independent of all outer integuments, supports, and apparent motives. Besides, the greatest contribution in manpower was supplied to the Crusades by knightly orders such as the Templars and the Knights of St. John, which were made up of men who, like the monk or the Christian ascetic, had learned to despise the vanity of this life. Warriors wary of the world, who had seen everything and enjoyed everything, withdrew into such orders, thus making themselves ready for an absolute action, free from the interests of common temporal life, and also of political life in the narrow sense. Urban VIII, so that would be the 53rd or the 7th? 5, 6. I'm guessing Pope Urban VIII is who they're referencing here. Urban VIII addressed chivalry as the supranational community of those who were ready to run to war wherever it might break out, and to bring to it the fear of their arms in the defense of honor and of justice. They should answer the call to sacred war, all the more readily, according to one of the writers of the time, since its reward is not an earthly fief, always revocable and contingent, but a celestial fief. And we do have a citation regarding Urban the 7th there. Or 8th. Here we are. Pope Urban VIII, who lived from 1568 to 1644 AD, was pope from 1623 until his death in 1644, during the 30 Years' War. He was the last pope to use armed force in an effort to increase the area under papal authority. He was also the pope who condemned Galilei for his theory of heliocentrism. So Galileo was basically a scientist who came to believe that the Earth revolved around the sun, rather than the Earth being the center of the universe and everything, including the sun, revolving around it. because that had been based on religious teachings, the theology of the time basically decreeing that to be the case. And he looked at it from a scientific perspective and wrote out some star charts, and that is what he came to believe. And at the time, nobody believed him. And evidently, he was excommunicated for it. Anyway, continuing. Now, where were we? Here we are. Moreover, the course of the Crusades, with all its broader implications for the general ideology of the time, led to a purification and internalization of the spirit of the enterprise. Given the initial conviction that the war for the true faith could not but have a victorious result, the first militaristic and military setbacks undergone by the Crusader armies were a source of surprise and dismay. But, in the end, they served to bring to light the higher aspect of sacred war. The unhappy fate of a crusader was compared by the clerics of Rome to the misfortunes of virtue, which are made good only in another life. But, by taking this approach, they were already close to recognizing something superior to both victory and defeat, and to according the highest importance to this distinctive aspect of heroic action which is accomplished independently of any visible and material fruits, almost in the sense of an offering, which draws from the virile sacrifice of all human elements the immortalizing absolute glory. One sees that in this way they approached a plane that was supra-traditional in the most strict historical and religious sense of the word tradition. The particular religious faith, the immediate purposes, the antagonistic spirit, were revealed clearly as mere means, as inessential in themselves, as the precise nature of a fuel which is used for the sole purpose of reviving and feeding a flame. What remained at the center, however, was the sacred value of war. Thus, it became possible to recognize that the opponents of the moment accorded to battle the same traditional meaning. In this way, and despite everything, the Crusades were able to enrich the cultural exchange between the Ghibelline West and the Arabic East, in brackets, itself the center of more ancient traditional elements, an exchange whose significance is much greater than most historians have yet recognized. Now, we do have an editor's note here defining the word Ghibelline. Here we are. The Ghibellines were a faction in the Holy Roman Empire who favored the imperial power of the Hohenstaufen throne over the power of the Vatican, as was supported by their rivals, the Guelphs. Evola saw this conflict as highlighting the distinction between priestly and royal authority in the state, since he believed the Ghibelline view to be the only valid one from a traditional perspective. He discusses this at length in Revolt Against the Modern World, his other book, well, one of many. All right, now, where were we? Here we are. In this way, and despite everything, the Crusades were able to enrich the cultural exchange between the Ghibelline West and the Arabic East, itself the center of more ancient traditional elements, an exchange whose significance is much greater than most historians have yet recognized. As the knights of the crusading orders found themselves in the presence of knights of Arabic orders which were almost their doubles, manifesting correspondences in ethics, customs, and sometimes even symbols, so the sacred war which had impelled the two civilizations against each other in the name of their respective religions led them at the same time to meet That is to say, to realize that, despite having as starting points two vastly different faiths, they had eventually accorded to war the identical, independent value of spirituality. In our next article, we shall study the way in which, from the premises of his faith, the ancient Arab knight ascended to the same supra-traditional point which the Crusader knights attained by his heroic asceticism. For now, however, we would like to deal with a different point. Those who regard the Crusades with indignation as among the most extravagant episodes of the dark Middle Ages have not even the slightest suspicion that what they call religious fanaticism was the visible sign of the presence and effectiveness of a sensitivity and decisiveness, the absence of which is more characteristic of true barbarism. In fact, the man of the Crusades was able to rise, to fight, and to die for a purpose which, in its essence, was supra-political and supra-human, and to serve on a front defined no longer by what is particularistic, but rather by what is universal. This remains a value too unshakable. This remains a value, an unshakable point of reference. Naturally, this must not be misunderstood to mean that the transcendent motive may be used as an excuse for the warrior to become indifferent, to forget the duties inherent in his belonging to a race and to a fatherland. This is not at all our point, which concerns rather the essentially deeply disparate meanings according to which actions and sacrifices can be experienced, despite the fact that, from the external point of view, they may be absolutely the same. This is a radical difference between the one who there is a radical difference between the one who engages in warfare simply as such and the one who simultaneously engages in sacred war and finds in it a higher experience, both desired and desirable for the spirit. We must add that, although this difference is primarily an interior one, nevertheless, because the powers of interiority are able to find expression also in exteriority, effects derived from it also on the exterior plane, specifically in the following respects. First of all, in an indomitability of the heroic impulse. The one who experiences heroism spiritually is pervaded with a metaphysical tension, an impetus, whose object is infinite, and which, therefore, will carry him perpetually forward, beyond the capacity of one who fights from necessity, fights as a trade, or is spurred by natural instincts or external suggestion. Secondly, the one who fights according to the sense of sacred war is spontaneously beyond even particularism and exists in a spiritual climate which, at any given moment, may very well give rise and life to a supranational unity of action. This is precisely what occurred in the Crusades, when princes and dukes of every land gathered in the heroic and sacred enterprise, regardless of their particular utilitarian interests or political divisions, bringing about for the first time a great European unity, true to the common civilization and to the very principle of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, in this respect as well, if we are able to leave aside the integument, if we are able to isolate the essential from the contingent, we will find an element whose precious value is not restricted to any particular historical period. To succeed in referring heroic action also to an ascetic plane, and in justifying the former according to the latter, it is too clear. To succeed in referring heroic action also to an ascetic plane, and in justifying the former according to the latter, is to clear the road towards a possible new unity of civilization, to remove every antagonism conditioned by matter, to prepare the environment for great distances and for great fronts, and therefore to adapt the outer purposes of action gradually to its new spiritual meaning. When it is no longer a land and the temporal ambitions of a land for which one fights, but a superior principle of civilization, a foreshadowing of what, even though itself metaphysical, moves ever forward, beyond every limit, beyond even every danger, beyond every destruction. This concludes Chapter 3. Chapter 4, the Great War and the Lesser War, the Greater War and the Lesser War, shall begin in the following video of this series. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.